Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at an advanced guide for Soraka for Pre-Season 8. And we're going to be focusing on a new item build that I've been developing lately with Ingenious Hunter and Ruby Sightstone and how that interacts with some very powerful runes, other itemizations, and how that fits into the meta right now. Well, I think Soraka is actually really, really strong. So I just started working on this a couple of days ago. I saw a Soraka that was running something similar to this. I don't know exactly what she was running, but I'm pretty sure that I saw her use Ruby Sightstone, and she was running Airy with Ruby Sightstone, and then she went Locket and Redemption. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I started looking at Ingenious Hunter, and I know some people have asked about that item and talked about cute things with like ZZ Rock Portal, and so on and so forth. But there are actually some really powerful interactions if you go for this build, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So we're going to first off talk about Soraka's basic abilities, just to familiarize people if you aren't in the know about Soraka and her abilities and sort of how she scales and how she works and like matchups that she's good in, matchups that she's bad in. We'll talk about that, talk about her overall strengths and weaknesses, then we'll talk about the runes and which runes I recommend and why, and then we'll talk about some specific details about certain runes, and we'll talk about items and a detailed explanation about the items with some math. So this won't be a super long guide. This is supposed to be an addendum to the original Soraka guide that I made last year, which is the most popular video on the channel. So I'll have that link somewhere. When I post this up, I'll just put a link to the original Soraka guide up here. So that's going to tell you about how to play her in lane. It'll talk more about the basic abilities and all that kind of stuff. This is mostly just going to be an add-on Soraka guide to that that's updated for Pre-Season 8 specifically with this build. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. And you can access this Google Doc in the description. I'll have timestamps for each section as well, so that you can navigate it a little bit better. All right, so let's look at Soraka here. So she did have some changes in the preseason. Not a ton. The main one is that she did get the armor. So there were some champions that got armor and some champions that did not get armor. So, for example, Soraka got an extra 8 armor. 8 and some change, actually. About 8.62. extra armor, but then other champions like Karma did not get that. She got 12 HP per level, and that's really bad early game. So Soraka is one of the better champions early game because all of the ADs got extra AD, and so you have to have that extra armor to match them or you're just going to get blown up in lane. And then some of the bigger mega tanks like Tarek got 20 extra base armor, as did Blitz and Alistar. So the tanks definitely got a lot of armor. And then some of the enchanters, like Soraka, like Sona, got a little bit of extra armor. Sona actually got 9.5 armor. So usually they got somewhere between 8 to 10 extra armor. And then some of them who weren't classed as bot laners for some reason, like Karma, got 12 HP per level instead, which is rough. Morgana also got 12 HP per level. And then Nami got armor, so a lot of them got armor. Soraka is one who got armor. So that's something that's important to note, is that she is pretty good still to put into the bot lane. She was not disadvantaged by the preseason stat shuffle. Now, she gains 70% bonus movement speed when moving towards allies below 40% of their max health. This is interesting. So with Celerity, which gives you an extra... I believe it's 8 ability power per 100. It's 8% ability power. So with 70 extra bonus movement speed, you're going to be moving, you know, if you have 325 on your base, you're going to be moving about 210 extra move speed. And so that's going to give you like 17 or 18 extra AP if you're running towards somebody and you have the celerity from the sorcery tree. So that's just kind of an interesting interaction between movement speed and how that translates over to AP. And Soraka can cast her abilities on the move, which is something that's underappreciated. This means that while you're running away, you can cast the Qs and hit people, and you'll speed up and run away even faster. Or you can just keep kiting, keep moving while you're healing, while you're running. She doesn't have a cast time on anything, and it doesn't require her to stop moving. So that's kind of advanced, but it's pretty good. And the range on the effect for the bonus movement speed is 2,500. So that's pretty nice. Lets you run and get to rotations into hot areas. Okay, Star Coal is kind of her bread and butter ability. It's very cheap early on. It does some pretty nice damage. For only 60 mana, it does up to 230 damage. Now, the ability power is not going to blow you away. It's okay. It's not amazing, but it's only on a 5-second cooldown, so it's very spammable. This is pretty good for wave clearing lane. Like, obviously, it's good if you hit the enemy with it as well, but you can use it to wave clear. So So it doesn't do any diminished damage if it hits multiple targets. So, you know, just queuing the wave for 110, it's pretty good. A couple of Qs sets up that backline very nicely for your AD carry to finish it off with, you know, a Jinx grenade or not a Jinx, a Jin grenade or like Sivir boomerang or just Jinx rockets. It just helps wave clear and push pretty fast. Faster than either Sona or Nami, who are kind of the other heal enchanters that are pretty strong right now. So, wave clear, decent harass, decent damage, and then as you hit it, it also heals you up to a certain amount. So if you hit them with 1 Q, it heals you for 42, 56, so on and so forth, and has some okay AP scaling. Now, the thing that you need to understand about this as well when you're playing Soraka, ideally, you want to hit your Q first and then heal. If you just do a naked heal, it's not as strong. So her heal has a pretty long cooldown early. It's 8 seconds. And it only heals for 80. Which is not amazing. It's okay for 50 mana, but it costs you 10% of your max health. So if you land a Q, however, even just a level 1 Q, it's going to heal for at least an additional 142. So that'd take it to 122 heal. Which is nice. So this not only heals you, but if you heal your ally at any point during the 4 seconds, it gives them the bonus for 4 seconds. So it's nice. And it gives you 10% bonus movement speed when you're running away. So it helps you kite people. So it slows them down by 30% and gives you an extra 10% bonus movement speed. So it's pretty good. You know, you want to hit this on enemies before you use your heal, if at all possible. If you're just sitting there chilling and they're not in critical condition, you want to try to hit your Q first. And obviously hitting the Q is going to heal you for the damage that you get dealt as well. So it's almost always better to hit your Q and then try to go for the heal. Heal's pretty standard. Now, the big difference here is it doesn't cost as much money as a lot of other champions, like a Nami W will end up costing you, it's over well north of 100 mana. This is always at 70, so Soraka doesn't have as large of mana problems as someone like Sona or Nami. Sona gets up to 100 mana, like a Janus Shield's 100 mana. A lot of the big ticket sort of heal shields are usually expensive on most champions. But hers is relatively cheap. It does cost you health, so that's kind of the trade-off. And it goes down to a 2-second cooldown, which is huge. I mean, you can just, you know, machine gun this out in a fight. So typically you'll want to put like 2, maybe 3 points in Starcall and lane, and then you max out your W up to level 9. And then I like to max Q after the W, because that gives you extra healing on top. So instead of just healing for 200, if you have the Q maxed out as well, that'll heal for 310. And this has a 50% AP ratio on that heal too. So 50% plus the 60 here is 110 percent ratio, which is really nice on your AP. So a 310 base with 110 ratio is very nice. Okay, so that's how that interacts. And then Equinox is her other skill, which is okay. Some people have said max this. I don't think so. I would just keep it. It's still going to be a really long cooldown. You're probably only going to get to use it once per fight. So just use this to try to interrupt people. Like the most basic way to use this slow field or silence field is just to put it on somebody right before they're about to flash or before they're about to do some kind of very obvious ability. Or you can use it to interrupt things like a Fiddlesticks channel or Misfortunal, Jinul, Zerathul, that type of stuff. So you can use it to interrupt, but also just use it whenever you think they're going to want to do an ability. So if Lee Sin goes in and you silence him so he can't kick somebody, or Zed ult somebody, you just put it right below him so that he can't cast any of his spells. So it's pretty helpful. Nice little slow field. Then her ultimate has a pretty long cooldown, but it has global reach and heals everybody for quite a lot, especially if they're below 40% of their max health. They deal an extra 50% damage, so or 60% health. So that's a 525 base on anyone that's injured at level 3. So that's pretty good. 325 at level 2. It's pretty good, pretty good. So Soraka, obviously, she doesn't have a lot of escape. She doesn't have a lot of dashes. That makes her very dangerous. She did get the extra armor, but overall, she's still relatively weak. She only starts with 530 opening health. She only has 100 or 325 move speed. And the Q does speed her up, but you have to be able to hit the Q. Like, they have to not dash or flash it. And, you know, it's just not going to it's going to be really bad if you get flanks. That's why she's not played a lot in pro play, is because she's very, very dangerous in lane if you're not positioning correctly. However, if she stands there and just gets to do her thing and just cast all over heal, she can be virtually unstoppable. So that kind of gets into what her strengths and weaknesses are. The main strength is awesome sustain in lane. It just makes it almost impossible for the enemy to do slow trades with you. If they're going to fight you at all and win, they have to do it really quickly. So it has to be something all in, like a Blitzcrank or a Leona. I recommend banning Blitzcrank if you want to play Soraka a lot, by the way. He's very frustrating. Even if you dodge his hooks, if your ally gets hooked, there's very little you can do with Soraka, right? Like, you can cast a silence field on him and try to heal him through it, but you really don't have the tools to disengage if someone gets pulled out of position like that. Like, you're not Janna, you can't just, you know, walk up and ult everybody back. So I think Blitz is a very safe ban if you want to play Soraka. So she has awesome scaling, and the biggest part is just she has a really high base heal that's on a 2-second cooldown. So especially if you hit your Q, that's a 310 base heal on a 2-second cooldown. So in theory, you could heal somebody once, they would start getting this bonus, you could heal them again, and it would refresh the bonus. They don't stack, but it would refresh. So that's helpful. Her Q is very good harassment, does decent damage in lane. I said before, you know, deal anywhere from 110 to 150 in lane, all for like 45 or 50 mana. That's pretty good rate. That's a good rate on return there. So that's good. Pretty good wave clear. Another thing which we'll talk about here in a little bit is she has a viable defensive build that doesn't detract too much from her overall power, and that's Warmogs. And yeah, it has to be later in the game. You have to get to that 2750 magic number to get the Warmog's regeneration, but it does make her extremely hard to assassinate, and it makes her virtually unstoppable in a siege scenario or during rotations, because you're always going to be topped off to full health, and the main gating factor on your heal, the thing that holds her back the most, is it costs health. So mana's not usually an issue, and her heals are huge most of the time, so it's usually just health. Can she sustain that? And with Warmog, she can. So it makes it very difficult to all-in her, and it makes it very difficult to out-attrition her with poke from someone like Ezreal or Corki or Nidalee or Ziggs or whomever. She's going to heal through it with Warmogs, because she not only heals herself, but she can transfer that healing to everybody else. Most other enchanters, like, you're going out of your way to get defensive items. Like, if you go, you know, something like a Warmog's on Sona or Nami or something like that, they don't have the same kind of synergy because it doesn't cost them health to use their abilities. So she has a viable late game defensive build, and a lot of other ones don't. So some of her weaknesses that I mentioned before: low mobility, low self-defense, low CC. All you have is your silence. Low kill threat. It's hard to kill people in lane of Soraka. Like, it can happen if they really screw up and try to all in you, but because you don't have a lot of hard CC or burst damage, then it makes it difficult for you to burst them out. And then she's very vulnerable to grievous wounds historically. So this is one thing that has sort of held her back, where it hasn't held someone like Sona back as much, is that all of her healing is straight up healing. It does not have any shield involved. And so if they decide to get something like Executioner's Calling or Morellonomicon, that can be very difficult to deal with, because it's just going to cut your healing in half. There's not a lot you can do about it. So that makes Soraka particularly vulnerable to enemy itemization. Now, if on the flip side, if they don't get grievous wounds, then you're just going to crush it. You're going to heal everybody so much, it's ridiculous. So she's kind of balanced around the assumption that they're probably going to have grievous wounds. Now, Aerie kind of helps with that, and we'll talk about Aerie here in just a second. Is it a Y or an IE? It's a Y, okay. But Aerie does help you with that by adding on a shield. So let's go ahead and move on and talk about Aerie here real quick in the runes. So that's overall strengths, overall weaknesses. So she's good, just to put a cherry on top there. She's good. Historically, she's had problems against assassins early game. We're running into a lot of assassins now with Talon, Zed. You know, we're getting Rivens more often. It's just a lot of super high damage burst champions. Kha'Zix, Rengar, even Hecarim jumping onto the back line. And then you've got like Ezreal and Lucian, who are kind of their own thing, but there's a lot of damage going around. So historically, she wouldn't be as good in this meta, but because of the specific itemization and build, I think she is. So let's talk about why. Okay, so the first option is the Airy Sorcery Domination tree. So, I don't... Okay, I do still have it pulled up here. Okay, so let's look. So what's the strength of going Airy? Almost everybody goes Airy right now. It's overpowered. Even like Riven goes Airy. And the reason for that is Airy has very high damage and shielding later on. So the shielding's irrelevant for most people, right? But the 20 to 60 damage, and the issue is Airy basically has like somewhere between a 3 to 5 second cooldown, depending on how close you can get to the person. On a Riven who just is sitting there just like spamming abilities and just cranking out damage, Airy's basically going to be on a 2-second cooldown because it stays on him for 2 seconds, and then the little ghost pet tries to come back to you. And as soon as you touch her, you get her again, and there's no cooldown. So if you're really far away, if you hit someone with like a Xerath ult and trigger Airy, then it's going to take, you know, maybe 10 seconds to run back to you. But if you're right on top of the person like Riven, then it comes off really quickly. So Soraka likes this just like everybody else. It triggers on auto attacks and it triggers on Q. So that's pretty nice. And so it ends up going like a 5-second cooldown. So early game, you can just keep spamming this. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just do your standard, you know, Q, try to hit them. Get an auto attack in there every now and then. Just try to out attrition them. And then as the game goes later on, when you want to do your shield, it transitions into a 30 to 80 shield with a 0.25 AP ratio, which is excellent. So, you know, once you start getting in those team fights level 9, you're getting an extra 54 shield, which is really strong. So yeah, I mean 54, like I've got the math here for you with Airy. Has very high uptime with Soraka too, because it's really easy to hit people. She has 550 auto range and her Q heals her, and has a really long range. So that lets Soraka trade very aggressively. So that's a great candidate for that part of Airy. And then the scaling, the WCD is only 2 seconds. When you're running around healing your own allies, then Airy's going to pop right off of your ally and jump right back to you. So it's going to be about 2 seconds to match your 2-second CD on your heal at level 9. And so basically you're going to get this on almost every heal that you throw down. You're going to get the Airy bonus. And, you know, it's roughly 50 shield. It's a little bit more than that with your AP. It's probably closer to 60. But if it was a 50 shield, it would be 25% extra healing power on your W, every W. Because remember, your W is worth 200. Unless you trigger the, whatchamacallit, the heal over time, the hot. And that would actually trigger Airy twice per cast. So if you hit someone with a Q, and then you heal them, after 2 seconds, Airy would come back to you, and then this keeps going, you know, for another 4 seconds on somebody, and then she would hop back onto them again for another shield. Actually, with 4 seconds, like, there's a chance if you're directly on top of them, you could get a triple Airy shield over that time. So it's very, very nice. And so that's basically like having an extra 25% power on your W. And one key factor in that is that it is immune to grievous wounds. The shield is not reduced by grievous wounds. So your heal might be reduced by 50%, but Airy is not. So, you know, with Airy, if you're doing 250 damage, if grievous wounds cuts it in half, that takes it down to 100 on the base heal, but Airy would still shield for 50. So it'd go down to 150 instead of 125. So it's nice. It's great harassment early, and it scales very well later into the game. And it gets modified by plus healing and shielding. So when you get 30% healing and shielding, like I'll talk about here in just a little bit, then you're going to get, you know, about an extra 17 shield or so off of that. So that's really good. And it gets modified by AP. So it has very, very good scaling. It's good early. It's good late. It's one of the most overpowered runes in the game right now on almost everybody, and Soraka's no exception to that. Okay, so what else does Soraka want? I prefer mana flow ban. This Soraka doesn't have huge mana problems, but this will help you out. It'll give you 70 mana per minute in addition to 8% of your missing mana. So if you're missing 200 mana, that would give you 86 mana per minute, which I've done the math in the past. It ends up being somewhere around like 7 mana per 5, so it's worth about 2 fairy charms and some change, and scales pretty well later into the game. So, you know, that's a nice 300 gold mastery level 1. So that's really good. And you have some options after that. I would not recommend going Transcendence. Some people will go that. The problem with Transcendence is level 10 usually takes quite a while to get now. You could go Transcendence. I could see it, but it does take a while to get to level 10 as a support because you don't have catch-up experience anymore. They took that out of the game, unless you take large jungle camps. So, you know, you're not going to get this online until like level or like 20 minutes into a game. And you don't get anything for partial value. Like you don't get any CDR at level 3, 5, level 9. You have to be level 10 before you get anything. So it's pretty late game. Celerity is another one. It's pretty nice. Now, I haven't been a huge fan of this, but it's actually okay. Like I said, it scales with her passive. So if you're running towards people, you're going to get, you know, an extra 18 ability power off this probably. So that's pretty strong. But then just that 4% move speed is pretty huge. I mean, that's roughly equivalent to 3 quints from the old rune system. So that's pretty good. It's like 2.5 quints. So on a Soraka who only has 325 base move speed, this is going to give her about 13 extra move speed. So I'll take her to about, 338, which is respectable. And then the extra ability power for movement speed. You don't need to go that far out of your way. Like you don't need to take Mobies and you have your passive active and all that stuff. It's not a super great conversion rate. It's just 8%. So if you have 100 bonus movement speed, you would get an extra 8 ability power, which is okay. So it's pretty solid. I think I did this in my Rune video as well. Let me see. And I just released this a few days ago. So if you want to see like super in-depth info about all of the runes, be sure to check it out. Yeah, so at 100 bonus movement speed, it's got about a 334 gold value, so pretty good. It's pretty good. And it scales a little bit later into the game, and not a huge amount. So that's what I'd probably recommend there. Absolute Focus is good, but you're not always going to be above 70%, especially before you get Warmogs, because you hurt yourself a lot when you're healing. So it's not that great on Soraka, so I'd probably go for Celerity. And then you can go Scorch if you think you're going to be able to land, like, force them out of lane early. But just keep in mind, this has no scaling on it. It's only on a per level scaling, so it has no AP scaling, and it only happens every 20 seconds. I'd say as Soraka, you're not really going for kills that much in lane. You're doing the best you can to harass them and put down as much damage as you can, but realistically, you're not going to convert a lot of kills in lane. And I would only run this on champions that are probably going to get kills in lane. So like Zyra, Brand, that type of stuff. Blitzcrank. But for Soraka, probably not. So I think Gathering Storm is probably the choice. This is really slow, but it kind of complements the fact that Soraka scales so hard later into the game. That's pretty good. And you have enough power early in the game, too, with your Q harassment and heals, that you can afford to take something that scales in the late game because you're already going to have an amazing early game. Especially with this build. I think you'll be able to be pretty defensive. So yeah, and then this is the same deal. You don't get any bonus until you hit those thresholds. So at 9 minutes, nothing. It's only at 10 minutes you get 8 ability power, then 24 at 20 minutes, and then 48 at 30. Which is obviously a great bargain. I mean, if you get to 30 minutes in a game, games are ending faster, so it's less likely you'll get to that. But oops, I'm pretty sure I did the math on that wrong. Is it 48 times 21.75? Yeah, it's about 1,000 gold value at 30 minutes. So that's pretty good. So that's what I would run. And then the key thing that you have to include with this build, which is super strong, is Zombie Hunter and Ingenious, or Zombie Ward and Ingenious Hunter. If we look at those really quickly, I'll explain kind of how that works. So Zombie Ward is extremely strong on most supports. Basically what that does is if you kill a ward, you put a Zombie Ward in its stead. So you kill a ward in a bush, you get a Zombie Ward, it lasts for 3 minutes, it gives just as much vision as a normal ward, but it's visible and they can kill it with a single hit. Okay, another key facet of this is if your own ward times out, you get a Zombie Ward. So I'm learning how to maximize this now, but if you put wards in good spots, like you rush a Sightstone, you put wards in good spots, and let those wards expire before you put up new wards, then you're going to get 3 zombie wards if they don't clear it. Okay, and so that means that, in theory, normal wards last 2.5 minutes. In theory, with 1 Sightstone, you could have 9 wards up on your own, assuming you don't even kill their wards at all, which you'll be killing their wards. But even with that, because you're going to have the 3 wards you just put down, they all die. You drop more wards immediately. So you have zombie wards. So you have 3 zombies, 3 new wards. After 2.5 minutes, those other zombie wards are still there for another 30 seconds. Then you get 3 new zombie wards for the last round of wards that you put down, and you put down 1 more wave of 3 wards. And so that's 9 possible wards you could have up for 30 seconds. And you'll have a large uptime. You'll have, what, 2 minutes? About 3 minutes. No, not 3 minutes of uptime. Is it 3? Yeah, you have 3 minutes of uptime for 6 wards, and you'll have 30 seconds of uptime for 9 wards, potentially, if you're doing it like in a picture-perfect scenario. But the main thing there is you're getting a lot of wards. You're basically getting double wards if you can protect them and if they time out. In addition, when you go around and use your sweeper, you get extra wards on the map because you kill them with zombie wards. And it's much better to sweep and kill a ward to get a zombie ward than it is to use a control ward, because if you use a control ward, that's all good, but it's redundant vision. You get the same zombie ward in your bush with the control ward, so it doesn't give you any extra vision. Now, yes, if you put the control ward in a new bush, then sure, you get to keep the zombie ward, but that costs some extra cash. So it's better if you can use your sweeper. Enter Ingenious Hunter. So every time you get a kill or an assist, you get 6% lower cooldown on your items. It also applies to trinkets, including your sweeper. Okay, so if you kill and get assists on all 5 people on the enemy team, this goes to 40%. And you can get Ruby Sightstone, which we'll talk about here in a second. It goes to 60%. So your sweeper ends up going down to about 30 seconds. And whenever you start the sweeper, it goes on cooldown and lasts for 10 seconds. So once your sweeper finishes, there's only 20 seconds of downtime before you can sweep again, which means you can just basically constantly sweep, and it constantly puts out more zombie wards. I mean, some of these games, I don't have my my client open right now, but like some of these games when I Soraka'd earlier in the day testing this out, we'll see if this actually works. But some of these games, I'll have like 80 wards at 25 minutes because it counts the zombie wards. So, I mean, they just put down an astronomical amount of wards. I mean, typically I try to get like 1 ward per minute. So in a 25-minute game, normally I would probably have about 25 wards. But in this, I have so much. Like this one, I had 48 wards. The enemy support had 10. Now, yes, that was kind of troll because they had an Ash support. But let's see, like, more standardized one here. This one, I had 53 wards. Enemy support had 19. So you can see how this adds up very quickly. And I'm still buying control wards. I got 7 control wards, so this isn't a replacement for control wards. It's just an insane amount of wards. I mean, I had more wards almost than their entire team combined. It's at 19, 28, 38. So I had 57 total wards. I had 53 by myself. And I destroyed 12. See, she also destroyed 12. But I have 53 wards. And she doesn't. Because I had zombie wards. So, it's really, really powerful to have zombie wards. And that scales extremely well with Ingenious Hunter and then Ruby Sightstone. So that's a combination you have to have with this build. And I would say you want to run this on virtually everybody. Ingenious Hunter Zombie. I mean, there might be some AP supports that aren't going to get any activatable items whatsoever, and then maybe you don't run it. But on any champion that can get activatables, you want to highly consider this. The other thing you can go is you can go Kleptomancy if you want. It does help you steal and get more potions early on. It's great for laning phase, but it starts to fall off later on in the game. And then Biscuit helps you with laning as well. Boots save you a little bit of cash. And then Cosmic or Celestial, the Cosmic for the 5% CD and 5% extra item cooldowns, and 5% summon or spell cooldowns. That's really nice. Or Celestial Body gives you 100 extra HP. So I think for like really tough lanes where you need early game, I would go for this. So if you're against like a Sona, Lulu, Nami, things that are going to harass you back, or even things that will all in you, like Blitz, you might want to go for Klepto. And the reason, especially if your team has a better late game, the reason is it's just efficient. Like, you're going to get like free gold off your boots. You're going to get 100 HP to help you against that Leona all in. And you're going to get a lot of extra gold. So if the lane's going to break early, though, like if you're against like a Caitlyn or a, I don't know, just something that pushes really hard, like Caitlyn Lulu or something like that, and you're afraid they're going to get your tower early, maybe don't do it. Like, you need to be able to stay in lane for probably like 10 minutes for Klepto to really start paying off, because you're not going to be able to trigger it outside of lane. You can't just walk up at 15 minutes and just like Q and auto attack their AD carry that has an infinity edge, because you're just going to get beaten up. So Klepto really doesn't do a lot outside the laning phase. It's just to help you through kind of tougher lanes. Aerie is much, much better outside of lane. Now, Aerie has nice offense in lane, but it doesn't offer you that much defense. So, Mana Flow is okay, Celerity is okay, Storm is obviously for late games. This is your better late game scaling build with Sorcery. And then this is for kind of your emergency, really tough lane, especially against other pokers. Just to help you stay competitive. Now, they are nerfing Aerie on the PvE, the damage portion. They're lowering it to 20 or 15 to 40 damage from 20 to 60. So, we'll see what actually gets released. If that's the case, we'll see. We'll see. I think you'd still want to get it because you're primarily getting it for that huge shield later on. So the harassment's nice early, but you're getting it for the scaling portion of the shield. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I explain this stuff, gets around that. Yeah, explain Klepto, and then Ingenious. Yeah, it takes the Oracle cooldown from 76 seconds down to 30 seconds when you have Ingenious fully stacked with Ruby. And yeah, I explained the zombie ward situation as well. And it scales really well with Soraka items. So let's talk about her itemization and what I recommend here. So I think you want to go coin again. The reason you want to go coin is you want the gold. The mana doesn't matter, especially when you take Mana Flow Band, either Mana Flow Band or the biscuits plus all the potions you get off of Klepto. Both of these are going to give you a lot of mana in lane. And so mana is not usually an issue for Soraka, and it's definitely not anymore, especially because you're going to be getting Redemption again pretty quickly with this build. And so you'll be able to build some Fairy Charms early. So I think that you can go coin, because the whole reason that coin got nerfed was they nerfed the mana on it twice. They took it from 15% of your missing mana per blue coin to 10%, and now it's like 6%, I believe. But the gold has always remained the same. It always gives you a lot of gold. Just the question is it okay if you don't have that much mana? With Soraka, with these new runes and masteries, yes, it's okay. You want to go for that. However, the difference here, you don't want to upgrade to Oasis early. Okay, so the reason for that is multifaceted. First, you want your 3 wards that you place to time out. You don't want to constantly replace wards if you can help it. So you don't need that 4th ward, so you can replace and move your vision forward because you want the wards to time out so you get the zombie wards. Okay, so there's not as much of a need for 4 wards immediately. We will get a 4-ward item pretty quickly with Ruby Sightstone. But you don't need to complete Oasis immediately for slot efficiency. The other reason that you don't want to upgrade that right away is because you might sell it later. And I think that with most builds, you probably want to sell it later. It is worth. It doesn't give you any extra gold to complete Oasis. All that it really does, now it only costs 250 gold. It's a pretty good deal, but all that it really does is it saves you a slot, so you don't have to have a Sightstone and your medallion taking up 2 slots. So that's kind of why you would complete it before. It gives you a little bit of extra regeneration and stuff like that. It doesn't matter that much. But you just want to keep it level 2 and then mess with it later. Okay, so do not upgrade this to Oasis. Do not upgrade it to Talisman right away. Keep it at Nomad. It's fine. All right, the next thing you want to start working is Ruby Sightstone. You want to get this as soon as you can. And there's several reasons for this. You can go ahead and get tier 1 boots. But first of all, Ruby is cost efficient. So it's one of the only forward upgrades that by itself, the upgrade is cost efficient. So you're paying an extra 800 gold for it over your normal sightstone. And you can see gold is worth 2.66 per. You're getting an extra 300. It goes from 200 HP to 500 times 300, 798. You're only losing 2 gold in efficiency off of it. So it's basically cost efficient by itself. So it's just like you're buying a huge just stack of health. All right. And then on top of that, for free, you get the ability to lay down a 4th ward if you want to. Like if they sweep one of your wards, you have a backup. Or if you just really need to replace the ward to check out a new spot, you have that option. But remember, you don't want to replace if you don't have to because of zombie wards. And you get 20% item CDR. So this drives your engine even further, right? It's going to allow you to get even more zombie wards because now you've got Ingenious Hunter, which by this point you've probably got a kill and an assist on at least a kill or an assist on at least 2 people. So Ingenious Hunter is going to be sitting at like 22% minimum right now, and this will take it to 42%. So it's going to bring your sweeper down to like, 35 seconds or something. Somewhere between 35 to 40 seconds. So that's going to let you sweep a lot more and get even more zombie wards and get your engine rolling. Like I know it seems weird to get Ruby before you have any activatable items, but don't forget that your sweeper is an activatable item and it's very powerful with zombie ward. So it's okay to buy Ruby early. The other reason is this protects you against assassins. And this is something that you haven't been able to rush in the past because zombie ward did not exist in the past. So sweeper was good. It was good to clear their wards, but now it not only clears their wards, but it gives you vision. So now there's an even greater incentive to get this early. And as sort of a side effect of that, it protects you against assassins somewhat because you get extra 500 mana or 500 HP. So now, you're going to be sitting completing this around like level 5 or 6, and you're going to be, as a Soraka, at like 1300, 1400 health. It's going to be very hard to all in and kill you a lot of the time. And you're able to heal yourself with your Q. So, they have to all in and kill you immediately or they're not going to kill you most of the time. So that adds an extra layer of protection. So it helps you get your zombie ward engine going. It sets you up so once you start getting things like your redemption, like your Mikhails, it's going to have that set up nicely, and it gives you that nice spike in health to protect you from the Talons, the Zeds, the Rengars, all of that stuff. So it's not going to make you immune to them, it's just going to make it a heck of a lot harder to kill you, especially if you're sitting on exhaust. So that's a really, really good rush item now, is this Ruby Sightstone. Another thing that I would recommend early, especially if that Zed or Talon mid lane, and I use those two because they're probably the most overpowered things right now in mid lane. A lot of people are still sleeping on that. They don't have it figured out yet. They're going to figure it out soon enough. Is Ninja Tabi. Now Ninja Tabi is already very cost efficient if we look at it. Excuse me. It's already 103 gold efficient. So it's a good bargain, and that doesn't include its passive, which is really nice. Damage from basic attacks are reduced by 10%. This includes, it doesn't reduce on-hit effects, but it does reduce basic attack modifiers like critical strike, and there are a handful of other things. I've talked about this in other videos, but Ninja Tabi are the most overpowered boots in the game right now, and so you can access that as Soraka. And I recommend getting that over mobility boots. Number one, you don't need to roam as much as Soraka. Like, it's nice, but you don't have like a brutal like roll up to mid lane, kill somebody, right? And if you're running to a tough fight anyways, you're going to get that 70% movement speed a lot of the times. And you need protection. Like, you are a very, very powerful asset to your team. If it's a team fight and you don't die, no one else is going to die either, probably. So you need to stay alive. This also complements Ruby Sightstone very well because now it gives you that extra armor and protection to complement the health. So now you're extra hard to kill in the early to mid game especially. So I think Ninja Tabis are the best. You can also go for Mercs if you want. If you're really greedy, you can go for Ionian. It will give you more exhausts. It will give you, a lot of stuff. But in this current meta, where this is super high risk, that something like Kayn, Zed, Riven, Talon, Lucian, Ezreal, all of these AD champions or someone's going to go off in a game probably on the enemy team. It's just, you know, they're going to play 3 of those types of champions a lot of times, and you are a prime target. You are public enemy #1 to the enemy team. So having access to that Ninja Tabi with a build that also gives you the extra health is really nice. So I highly recommend Ninja. You could still go old school with like Mobility or Ionian if you want, but I think especially in this meta, it's a really smart idea just to go Ninja Tabi. Okay, and now let's start getting to the spicy stuff. So early on, coin into Nomad, Ruby, boots. You can leave them at tier 1 and just skip straight to Redemption if you want, or if that Zed or Talon is just coming at you, or the Lee Sin, or whatever it is, then you could go ahead and upgrade to Ninja Tabi, and that'll be okay. You just kind of have to gauge how much do you need that extra armor right now. Now we go back to Redemption. The old, I don't know what you'd call it, old trusty here. Old trusty Redemption for the last year. So Redemption has been underground for a while. Now, they nerfed Redemption several times. I can go ahead and pull up Redemption here really quickly. You might be wondering, well, why don't we see Redemption as much? Why did people stop getting it? Well, first of all, Ardent Sensor was much stronger, and Ardent Sensor was starving out Redemption as a first buy. It's just a much more efficient item by itself, and it still is, than Redemption. It's also a lot more reliable than Redemption, because you just shield somebody, they get all these bonuses. Redemption can miss. All right, so that's why Ardent Sensor, for about the last 6 patches or so, has outshined Redemption. Redemption also underwent several nerfs. So 7.12. This was the big one for Redemption. So this is when you started seeing Ardent Sensor after Rush, after this nerf. So the health was reduced. Base regen, whatever, the regens don't matter. The 100 health hurts though. I mean, that's 266 gold worth of health. And then it used to heal for 65 to 490 base, and now it only heals for 30 to 370, which is much, much lower. At lower levels. Now, in considering its own plus percentage healing, then it's better. Okay, so, and it got nerfed a couple other times. It used to be 400 health. This took it down to 300. And the heal was reduced here as well. A lot lower. So, basically, how they balance this is they want you to have a lot of plus healing and shielding to make this worthwhile. They do not want you to rush it. Alright? But you're going to rush it. Well, not rush. Like, you're going to get Ruby first, but then you're going to get it afterwards. And the kicker there is it's on a 120-second cooldown. Once you get Ruby Sightstone plus Ingenious Hunter, that goes to a 48-second cooldown. This means that, like, every fight it's going to be up, and you can afford to take a lot more risks with it. And it has a semi-global presence, so if you get it early, this is important in, like, well, it's good for team fighting, but it's also good for sort of just skirmishing around the map. So if mid lane gets into a fight, you know, a Zed tries to all in, your mid laner, you can probably throw a Redemption from bot lane. Like, you don't have to, I'm not sure the exact range, but you would not have to go very far up the river at all to throw a Redemption in there. It's 550 range, so it's semi-global presence. This also complements Soraka's ult, which is true global. So you can drop a Redemption and your heal and swing the fight mid lane. So that, you know, maybe they survive, maybe they turn around, get a kill, maybe they even get a double kill on the jungler. And that's huge. And it's not a huge risk to do that. Like before, if it was a 2-minute cooldown and bot lane saw you use that Redemption, then they would know they could go all in for the next 2 minutes whenever they want. You know, once they get their cooldowns back, they can go all in and you're not going to have it. Well, now, 48-second cooldown, that's a much, much lower window of vulnerability. So you can go ahead and just try to make a play mid lane with it. If it doesn't work, just chill for 48 seconds. You have it back. So that's just basically chill for a wave and a half. A wave's 30 seconds. So it's not that long to wait until this is back up. It's very, very strong. Trust me, it feels just ridiculous when you have it with your Ingenious. If your Ingenious is not super stacked, you know, if you've only killed and got assists on like 3 people, it's still going to be like 55 to 60 seconds. It's still really nice. And you're going to have this right off the bat because you already got Ruby. early on for the reasons I described. So this is ready to go with the 20% plus whatever you have on Ingenious. And the regen on Redemption rushing it is nice. Now, regen had been somewhat overkill on a lot of champions because you'd get Eye of the Oasis, which has some pretty decent regen on it. But now because you're getting Ruby Sightstone, that doesn't have any regen. And so getting the extra mana regen off of Redemption is actually quite nice early on. So yeah, getting that 150% base mana regen is pretty good. And of course you get the health and all that stuff. So yeah, great item. It's back. And it also helps, it gives you another layer of protection. It has health built into it, and you can use the you can more freely use the active to try to protect yourself. If someone is trying to kill you while you're warding, you can use this to help you get out of there. And it's not going to be a 2-minute penalty, it's just going to be a 48-second penalty. So once again, you can use it to protect yourself, to protect others, to help win team fights around Dragon. It's really, really strong. Again, and a lot of it is because it's from a 2-minute cooldown to a 48-second cooldown. Okay, the other one that I would rush here, which is kind of strange, is I would get Mikhail's. And this is something that I haven't advocated a lot of, and a big part of that is it's not super cost efficient. I mean, neither is Redemption without its active. It's only 97%, which is not awful, but it's not amazing either. And then this, I guess this is 104, so it's pretty decent percent efficient. But what's up with Mikhail's while you're rushing it? Well, number one, remember that Redemption now scales off of plus healing and shielding. You get an extra 3 times the healing. See how it says there in the text? Well, I'll just pull it in here. I believe it's 3 times, right? Which is increased by 2.5 times your healing power? I thought it was 3 times. Reveal the area after a 2.5 second delay. 2.5 times your spell and heal power. Huh. Okay, I thought it was 3 times unless they nerfed it. Let me see this. Why does it say that? It's 3 times. They're trolling. 3 times as much by healing and shield. Okay, so it's triple. So basically what that means is that if you have 30% off of Mikhail's and Redemption, then this would effectively have 90% extra healing and shielding power. Yeah, that must be a typo or something. I don't know, because the patch notes themselves is triple. But that's number one, is it gives you a lot of healing and shielding power, and so it makes Redemption much more relevant once you complete this item, because it's going to be hitting like a truck, a good healing truck, once you complete it. So that's number one, is that's really nice. Number two, it also goes on a 48-second cooldown. And this active is very powerful, especially in a meta that has a ton of damage in it. So it's really good against Leona. If she hits somebody with her slow, or she, you know, flash stun somebody, you can just Mikhail's, knock it off. It's great against Thresh. He hooks somebody, Mikhail's, Morgana Bind, Mikhail, Fiddle, Ashe, the list goes on. So there are a lot of very dangerous Lux. There are a lot of very dangerous crowd control effects that you can use this for. Even like a Nasus Wither. Just cleansing that off of somebody is huge. And you can be much more aggressive with this because you don't have to wait 2 minutes. It's just 48 seconds. So once again, that's just a wave and a half. So this will be up for every single Ashe arrow. It'll be up for every single Leona ult. It's going to be up a lot more. And that's a great... Now, that's a great boost to its power. Now, I will say that if you don't consistently use this quickly on people, if you just can't process that and micro it fast enough, do not get this item. Only get it if you can actually cleanse off, meaningfully cleanse this stuff in time to save people. So if you forget to use this and that Morg Bind stays on somebody for the full 3 seconds, or even if you forget for like a second and then use it but they die anyways, don't do it. You need to be able to cleanse like really quickly. And this protects you as well, right? Now if they disable or stun you with like a Thresh hook or something, it's not going to save you that much, but if you are binded by Morg, or if you are binded by Lux, anything that's not a stun, you can cleanse it away and run. Like in a Moo ult, I think you can still get out of. So that active is really strong, especially when it's under a minute on the cooldown, and it gives you the shield. And it has really nice scaling as well. So Soraka has a lot of healing power because her W is on such a low cooldown. So she scales extremely well. Extremely well with plus healing and shielding. If you compare her to something like a Nami, yeah, Nami's wave has pretty good heal, but it's on a 10-second cooldown. Soraka's W is on a 2-second cooldown. So that means in the time, now not accounting for CDR, you know, you could get off 5 of these. You could get off, you know, 1,000 worth of healing in the time that Nami could get off 240 or whatever. Janna, the same thing, 10-second shield. So in the time that it takes Janna to put on that 210 shield, you can get off 5 heals. So that's why healing and shielding scales so heavily on Soraka, because she can spam this stuff so hardcore. So the plus healing and shielding stat is no joke on Soraka. It's extremely good, and it scales with Redemption. Specifically, and the HP regen, this is one of the only enchanters where this is actually a really nice stat. If we look at Mikhail's here, basically all of your mana regen turns into health regen. Oh, this for every plus 20. Okay, no, it doesn't include your base. It's everything. It says base. You gain base health regen for every 25% base mana regen. Additional. Yes, because you're okay. So your base stats are an absolute number, right? So you go anywhere from 11 to 18. So it does not include that. So you do not get an extra 18 health regen per 5 just because you have 18 mana regen per 5. It's based on the items that give you that specific stat. So this gives you 100 mana regen, which means it would also give you 100 health regen. And then Redemption gives you 150 mana regen, which means it would also give you 150 health regen. So you'd get an extra 250% health regen, which on Soraka comes out to be about 18 health per 5, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's like almost 2 health per second that you get. And then don't forget that plus healing and shielding also modifies your passive health regen. So you get an extra 30% with these 2 items off of that, which would give you about 24 health per 5, which is like 4 per second. It's like 4 point something health per second, which is really nice. That's really good. So that's nice on Soraka because she burns through so much health using her ult. And so having that extra little bit of health regen is particularly good. So this is just a great item on Soraka. It has a nice CD active that plus healing and shielding scales very well in general on Soraka, and it scales extremely well with Redemption. She loves having the health regen, and it gives you the 40 MR, which is a really nice bargain. Once again, that gives you some extra protection. So all of these give you protection, plus they have extra utility. Okay, and then you kind of have some options here. You can actually go Warmog at level 11 if you have these items without going out of your way and get the bonus. So if we look at Warmogs, now they buffed Warmogs several times. So 7.9 was the big buff. So they lowered the cost, or they lowered the health requirement to 2750 from 3000. This is important. I'll show you the math here in a second. It only takes 6 seconds to trigger from 8 seconds. It increases 5% of your max health per second versus 3. And yeah, so that makes it very, very powerful on Soraka, because the main thing that's going to gauge your healing, as I said before, is your health, your own health. So mana is usually not an issue. It's you get super low, and eventually either you just can't heal anymore, or it's just not safe to heal anymore. So these items, incidentally, give you enough health to be able to pull this off at level 11 without having to do anything that's like weird or cheesy. Like before, you would have to get like weird or cheesy things to get to that 3,000 health. Like you might have to get an extra Kindle gem or, you know, something weird like very far out of your way. This is like right on curve if you want to get this. So you can go Ruby, which is 500 health. Go Redemption, which is 200. Warmogs is 800. That's a total of 1,500. And then at level 12, your base health is going to be 1297. So 1297 plus 1,500, 2797. The threshold is 2750. So once you get to 2750, you get 2.5% of your max health every second, which you're going to have, you know, off of 2750, that's close to 3,000. So you're going to get like almost 75. You'll probably get like 70 health per half second. So your health bar just goes, just fills all the way up. It's ridiculous. If you've never seen Warmog, you've probably seen it on things like Sejuani or Cho'Gath. It's sick. And it's pretty efficient by itself too. It's 105% efficient even if this isn't active. With this active, it becomes 640% efficient. So you can get it on Soraka. If you're sieging a lot, if you feel like there's a lot of rotations, if they have a lot of poke, you know, if there's a Ziggs that just keeps poking out your teammates or poking you out, this makes it almost impossible for them to deal with it because they hit you with a bomb, fine, you press W. You know, heal up your ally, or you just naturally heal it up. So it's excellent against poke. If you just get done with a crazy team fight, you want to rotate over to Baron, everybody's super low, just spam your heal on the way there, and you're going to be full health also by the time you get there. So it's really good. They got a Fed Zed who thinks he's going to one-shot you? No, he's not. Because you're going to have 2,800 health, and you're going to have the Ninja Tabi and all this other stuff. So it's going to make it very hard for assassins to one-shot you as well. If you get Celestial from the... If you go the Klepto tree and you get Celestial Body, which gives you 100 health, you can actually get it one level sooner. Which I don't think is a huge deal. Usually you'll have to be at least level 11 to have enough money to afford all this. But in theory, you could get it at level 11 with that. And then finally, Locket of the Iron Solari is the other thing you'll probably want to get. Locket synergizes very well with all of this stuff. So it's only going to have a 36-second CD because it only has a 90-second base instead of a 2-minute base. So with Ruby and Ingenious, it goes down to 36-second CD. This means you could do it every single wave, just about, within 6 seconds. It's disgusting. So at level 12, the base shield off of Locket is 302. So it doesn't take into account the health scaling. There we go. So yes, at level 12, 302. Then it's 2 to 6% of your max health. So it's 24% of your max health. Now that's bonus health. Sorry, bonus health, not max. With Warmogs, you would have a 662 shield per. And if we include the bonus healing, because that also affects the shield, the bonus healing from Mikhail's and Redemption, then all of a sudden it goes to an 860 shield on everybody on your team. That is gross. Now, if we just include without Warmogs, the 700. So say you don't get Warmogs, you just go straight into Locket. That's a 470 shield on everybody. So that's still pretty dang respectable for 36 cooldown. So if you feel like you aren't getting targeted really hard and you just want more teamfight contributions, you're not worried as much about getting poked out, they just basically have an all-in team, you can just go for Locket before Warmogs. And that's probably better most of the time, to be honest. Like, Warmogs is cool because you just feel invincible, but it's probably better for your team to get Locket. This is also a much faster item. It's only, I believe, 2,100 gold. 2,200 gold. So, and Warmogs is like 3,000. 2,800, something like that. It's in the upper twos. So yeah, this just comes out a lot faster. Now you can get all of these. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in theory. You would have to sell nomads. Now, you can get talisman if you want to. The problem with talisman, like, it's nice, it gives you a good active, but it's not nearly as cost efficient as these other items we've looked at. So it's only 76% efficient. Now, it is your gold item. It does give you a lot of base health regen and stuff like that. It does take the active down to, like, I don't even know, 60% of 60 is at 36. Yeah, okay. So I can't do math, sort of in my head. So it takes it down to a 36-second cooldown. So yeah, I mean, it's good. If your team lacks engage, if you really need some speed to help people get in, then you can get this as Soraka. It does give you some armor, so it gives you a little bit of health. But I would still contend that most of the time, Locket or Warmogs would be better. But if your team just really needs the speed, then you can do it. So that is an option. But just, you know, by the time you complete all of these items, like late game, it's going to be like 35 minutes in. You don't need to have your gold item anymore. You're already near max item. It's okay to sell your gold item late game. All right, to get something special, right? So let's say that, you know, you just completed all this stuff and then you're sitting on your pink ward slot and your gold item and it's 35 minutes in the game. Just go ahead and sell your gold item and get the locket. You can even, in theory, get rid of your pink ward slot for both of these near the end of the game, because you're going to have a sweeper that's available every like 20 seconds, right? So I would still rather have control wards than most of these items, but if you get a complete item, I'm not talking about getting a null magic mantle part of locket and selling your pink ward slot to get a null magic mantle. No, only a complete item, final item, replaces your control ward slot. But yeah, that's a really good option for all of that. So that's the combo. That's what's really exciting here. I think that's what's going to put Soraka over the top, is that she's very tanky with this build. Not like, you know, Sejuani tanky, but for like a utility support, she's pretty dang tanky. She's going to have a lot of health. She's going to have Ninja Tabi. She's going to have more redemptions, lockets to keep her safe, Mikhail's to cleanse her allies. She's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve with this. And I think all of them synergize so well with Ingenious Hunter and Ruby Sightstone. It's not even gimmicky. Like, all that stuff is just so good. It works so well together with zombie wards, with all of the actives, with things that Soraka kind of wants to do anyways. So I think this is really strong, and this could be a paradigm that's used on a lot of different champions. I used something like this on Rakan the other day. I just went Ruby, Ruby, Talisman, Redemption. But you could refine that even more. I mean, you could even build this on Rakan. Like, you could do like virtually the same build. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing Warmogs. That's kind of a special Soraka thing. But you could build Locket. So I could see a Rakan who does... Rakan might want Mobies instead of Ninjas. But either way, a tier 2 boots, Nomad, Ruby, Redemption, Mikhail, Locket. I think that'll be a standard build on almost every enchanter. Maybe Sona's different because of her special interaction with Ardent Censer and like her strength with Athene's Unholy Grail. But this might even be the go-to for her. It's a really powerful build. And tanks have a version of this too. So you can do Ingenious Hunter, Ruby, Face of the Mountain Locket if you want to. Now, I'm not sure if you would want to go Redemption on them. It's possible, but you're not going to have plus healing and shielding to help you out. But you could certainly get, you know, a lot of these components as well. I think Ruby plus Ingenious plus Zombie Ward is definitely a combo you're going to see a lot once people figure it out, as an extremely oppressive, like, vision, complete shutout combo. It is so hard to keep vision up against someone who has a sweeper that's available like a third of the game, right? It's on a 30-second cooldown. You can sweep for 10 seconds of that. So it's going to almost literally be up 33% of the game. You're going to be walking around with sweep. So, I mean, it's not quite as bad as having a permanent Oracle from like season 1 or 2, but it's getting there. So Now, one question you might be asking is why not Ardent Sensor? I did mention that, I think, before, but just to kind of put a bow on that conversation, it's very slow, especially for a single target healer early on. Burst damage is really high. Attack speed is less valuable. That's why you aren't seeing people run things like lethal tempo as much. Everyone's doing press the attack. It's just all about that burst damage. Ardent doesn't offer any defensive stats outside of like the move speed, if you want to count that. So it's not going to protect you very well against level 6 Zed roaming bottom. Whereas like Ruby Ninja might, or even like Ruby Redemption might. So that's something to definitely consider. It doesn't have any synergy with Ruby and Ingenious, which is kind of the whole point, and I think that's going to be the meta-defining combination. It's still a really good bargain in isolation. It's just the problem is it slows down your core build and doesn't really like synergize very well with what you have going on. So if you were just to say, yeah, is it better than Redemption if we take away everything else and just compare them side to side, just juxtapose them? Sure, yeah, absolutely it is, I think. But when you start comparing, well, what about Ruby plus Ingenious plus Redemption plus Mikhail's? You know, is Ardent plus like Athene's a better combo? Probably not. Probably not. So anyways, that's it. Thank you very much. So I do think the Soraka with this build deserves to be higher on my tier list. I'll upgrade it for, you know, there'll be 7.23 that comes out next week. But yeah, I think she'll definitely go into tier 1 after this. I mean, she might actually be the best after this. I just think this is such a powerful build. Well, I'll test it out throughout the week and we'll see, but I just wanted to let you guys know, just kind of update you on Season 8 with Soraka. I know we have a lot of Soraka fans out there. That's the most watched video on the channel, so I'm trying to give you some new Soraka content. I'm probably going to be playing it more. I will record some more VODs with it so you can kind of see it in action, so stay tuned for that. But for now, that's going to be it. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.